I was sent to Bunker Hill Air Force Base in Indiana.
And that's where we joined the church.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and tell that story, how you became acquainted with the church? What did you heard about it beforehand, and how did you come to join?
Well, we'd read 2 terrible articles in a couple of magazines that your dad got about the Mormons, and it was really bad. And we later found out that it was not true. And that the stories were about members that were excommunicated from the church. But Dad can tell you more about how he came in contact with the young man that brought us into the church.
What happened was, I worked with in the intelligence section, and our whole building was a vault. You had a vault door to get into the building, but you had a guard there, and you'd have a password. Every day was a new password to get into the building. There was no windows. And inside the vault, this huge vault, were other vaults. And the security was very tight because we also had a guard inside that checked every visitor that came in. Everyone had to show identification. So one day in my office, I had a guy working for me by the name of Airman Boone. And Boone said to me, he said, you know, I just heard something kind of strange from a guy down in the radar vault. And he said, he's a lieutenant. And he talked about the Trinity. He said there were 3 separate individuals. And I said, yeah, okay. And I had a big old cigar in my mouth. I said, well, I looked at my watch. I said, Boone, I said, you take over. Because everyone had to man the office. You had to have someone that was physically present. So I said, okay, you take over. I'm going home for lunch. I only lived 4 or 5 blocks away. And so I walked out to turn left to go past go down the end of the hallway to go out left again to go past the security guard, and I turned right. And it was the strangest thing. To this day, I don't know what happened, but I ended up in the radar vault and said to myself, what am I doing here? And there was nobody there. I thought, oh, security violation. So I took a step forward, and here's this guy was seated on the other side in a chair, smiling. And he said, may I help you? And I just started to say, no, I just want to check to see why the door was open. And I said, well, you said something interesting to Airman Boone. I said, about the Trinity being 3 separate individuals. So he just leisurely got out of his chair, walked over. He says, would you like to know more? And I wanted to say, no, I don't want to know more. And I said, yes. And for the next hour and a half, I received first, second, third discussion, I think. And I never got home to lunch.
I wondered where he was.
And so he said to me, he said, how about coming over to my house Friday night? And this was on a Tuesday. Let's see, Tuesday. No, Wednesday. Wednesday. Yeah, this is on a Wednesday. And so I told your mother that when I got home, I said, oh, I committed ourselves to go over to this guy's house. I said, I'll take care of it. I'll give him an excuse. So the next day, I walked in with a beautiful excuse why I couldn't make it Friday. And I walked past the security guard, turned right to go down the hallway to my office, and there he was. And he was just walking right past me. He said, I'll see you Friday night, right? Yes. And I was dumbfounded. I went home and told your mother, oh, I said, I really goofed. I said, but tomorrow, which is Friday, I'll just tell him. And the same identical thing happened in the same identical place. He was walking down the hall as I made the corner and came around. He said, "See you tonight, right, Oak?" And I said, yeah. So we went over there, his house. I felt committed to go over, and I said, well, it won't take long. And there were 2 lady missionaries. We were set up. And we threw every question we could think of at them, trying to trick them, trying to find a loophole, because at that time I was heavy into archery.
He was he would have been, I think, the state champ had he continued on, because he was really good.
Well,
He had all kinds of trophies. We had one big wall just covered with trophies, dozens of them.
anyway, it was interesting. But I can remember when I went, we finally said, well, I mean, this had after weeks of we told the missionaries, they said at baptism day, we said, we're not going to accept it. It came and went.
2 or 3 times.
Yeah, and then your mother and I came home one noon, and I walked in the door, and I said, you know, either the church is true or it isn't. It doesn't matter that they committed us to baptism. And we both agreed it was true. So then we called the sisters, and I think they got emotional.
Oh yes, they were crying.
But then we said we want a private baptism. It was anything but private. He said we're going to go to the steakhouse, and I thought, well, we're going to go to the restaurant before we go to the baptism. And we pulled up at the steakhouse. It was dark, and I'm looking for signs saying restaurant. And it was an awakening. But anyway, we got in there, and all of a sudden people began to flood in. And
There were about 20 people baptized
Oh,
that
yeah.
night, I think. Well, yeah, and also you forgot, the sisters brought in 8 elders to our house one Saturday, and we threw every question in the book at them that
Oh
day.
yeah, we
We had an answer
really
for everything.
gave them a rough time. Then I told them, I said, well, you know, I'm in these tournaments, and they're on Sunday afternoons. There were split sessions at that time, and the tournaments were just a short ways away. And I said, I've got to go. He says, well, you know, I wouldn't recommend it. He said, but it's up to you. So I went, and that Sunday, and I lost my match. And so the following Sunday, I went, and I even lost more. And people were coming up to me saying, hey, what's the problem? I said, I don't know. And so I went to one more match, and I could have stood on top of the target. I could have been 6 inches away from it, and I couldn't have hit the bullseye. And so I went home, and I gave all of my archery equipment away.
Well, he said, Gail, he says, the Lord doesn't want me on that archery field any longer. So that was it.
Yeah.
And you had handmade bows and...
Yeah, I had some beautiful citation bows made out of California, and
Gave everything away. Well, he sold some of the bows and arrows, but gave a bunch of his trophies away.
You just
Yeah.
quit completely.
Yep,
yeah.
never went out again.
Oh,
Then we
yeah.
were there in the church, what, about 6 months?
6 months.
We were sent to the Philippine Islands.
And I was glad because I was doing a lot of gambling, and we had parties all the time. Filled the house with cigar smoke.
That was in England.
Yeah, but
That was
also in Indiana.
Oh, yeah, but after we joined the church, you didn't. 'Cause
No,
we
no, after
threw
the
everything
church,
away.
no.
Everything went out.
Yeah, it was interesting. And then one year after being in the church in the Philippines, I was in the Philippines 6 months, and then they made me second counselor in the branch presidency.
the day they made him an elder.
Yeah.